Hi, I'm Arnaud Saint-Paul. I'm a philanthropist. I have a background in technology and finance, and I help leaders to really becoming more conscious and align with their optimized self, I guess, and help them really lead their company through their heart using the Heartful method that I created in the past 30 years. I help people, organizations, individuals to get into a state of flow, of balance, and of optimal actualization. On the show today, we will talk about how we can use blockchain and metaverses for a sustainable financial literacy of our next generation. We will also ask the question, or better said, answer it. Why change when you are very successful? Why is it so important? Now, the last one is how to become the conductor of your company to drive it from a place of cacophony to being symphonic, harmonious, and a highly profitable organization. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. You know, a powerful analogy of being a great leader must be in being the conductor of a symphony orchestra. As the conductor of that orchestra, you have somewhere between, on average, 80 to 100 musicians in front of you. They are all brilliant in their own right. And in many ways, they're all fighting for their own brilliance to be heard above everyone else's. And you must find a way to bring them together to serve a greater good. You must bring them into coherence to create a harmony so that together they serve that greater good. But how do you do it? That's really the difficulty of what it means to be an outstanding and an actualized leader. Well, stay tuned, because that's where we're going on the next 2 episodes as we sit down with Arnaud Saint-Paul. As always, we need your help in staying relevant, so please do us a favor, go over to wherever you tune into the podcast, and this really does matter to us. We really do appreciate it if you would rate, review, and subscribe to the show. We love it when you do that. If you are a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us one of the top podcasts in the world, as we are the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. By the way, I know you're curious, my name is Dov Baron. I'm your host, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. Curious to know more? Simply go to dovbaron.com and let's discover how I can assist you and your organization. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. Our guest today is Arnaud Saint-Paul. Over the last 20 years, Arnaud has been a philanthropist and an award-winning entrepreneur. He lives between Los Angeles and Paris and travels worldwide while having a successful career in finance and in technology. Now, one of the wonderful things that came up in a conversation that Arnaud and I had a while back, quite a while back actually, was how we had this parallel life where we'd both gone off on this deep spiritual journey, which was about self-discovery. And that's exactly what he did. He traveled the world like I did to study different religions and philosophies to understand himself. And yet his purpose today is to open 1 billion hearts to help them find harmony within and around them. He is doing that with many of the top corporate leaders and entrepreneurs. These are people who realize they need to find harmony within themselves and within their organizations to make a difference in the world. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me to welcome the leadership conductor, the maestro himself, Arnaud Saint-Paul. Hey! Good to have you here, man.
Thank you. Hi. So
Been a
happy
while
to
coming.
be
I'm
here.
really happy to have this conversation.
Me
There
too.
was so much resonance between the two of us and our journeys. We both ended up in the leadership world, and yet we were definitely in the metaphysical, spiritual world and philosophical world of understanding. So let me ask you, what is the origin story that gives your life meaning? As you know, everything I do is about finding the meaning, and I think that oftentimes people kind of stumble into it. Everybody's looking for meaning in every place that's not where it will be. What's the origin story of your meaning?
I guess, meaning, it's purpose, right? In the end also. And
Yes.
I guess I was fortunate enough to stumble upon it. And then at some point it opened up itself to me as well. And where then I decided, oh, this is my purpose. So in other words, when I was 13, I really woke up spiritually where, that inner truth inside yourself supersedes whatever is around you. And then I had one question, only one question that was the most important one for me to go and get an answer to. Who am I? And that drove the next 30, 40 years of discovery and figuring out how this amazing and beautiful life that we live, it was not necessarily as beautiful and as amazing sometimes, right? But throughout work, throughout our personal lives, what does that mean, right? And that brought me to a place where I saw it became an evidence for me that any time I have in this life, any resources I have should be dedicated to something that has a systemic impact for society from my point of view, obviously, which is to help people open their heart to themselves, because this is the key for any business and for any personal lives to be the best expression for themselves, and therefore the most successful, the most profitable, etc., and the most impactful, more importantly than not, right? So that's how it unfolded for me to find that meaning that makes me alive and also helps me to wake up in the morning and have so much fun.
Well, when so this happened for you at a very early age, at 13. It certainly doesn't happen that young for most people. Were you born into a spiritual environment? Were you born into a philosophical environment? Was that applauded, or was that like, what the hell's wrong with my kid?
Yeah, I think all of the above. No, I was born in an educated environment. Yes, that was very beneficial. I was not born in a spiritual environment at all.
Right.
And what's wrong with that kid?
Right.
Definitely. But that contrast was amazing, because this way I was able to say, okay, I am different, right? Which is the purpose of any human anyway. And what is my truth? And so to hone that truth and making sure it is the actual truth of oneself was what this environment gave me the opportunity for.
Well, the reason I bring that up is, we talked about, even in the intro, being the conductor of an orchestra, and the orchestra is an environment. Right, and it
not
is
necessarily only, but yes.
Not only, of course, but it is a culture. It's an environment. Okay.
Yes.
And inside of that culture, I lived in Australia for many years, and there's a saying there called tall poppy syndrome, meaning if you pop your head up above the crowd, they cut your head off, and what it means is you're going to get put in your place pretty quickly, and culturally, we all grow up in some version of that. Right, where you're popping your head up and you're getting knocked down, and behave yourself, follow the rules, do the thing. You had this epiphany at 13. I was also very, very young when it happened for me, and I know how that didn't go down too well.
Yeah.
But I often think about it, because my clients are, like yours, they're executives. They're often in their youngest, usually youngest is their 30s, but oftentimes in their 50s and more. And they're having this sense that you and I had when we were kids. The only difference is there is a much stronger culture that's going to knock their head down and say, that's not who you are. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about your working with these people who are in environments that are saying it's about the bottom line, buddy, right? And you need to make sure we're making profit and blah, blah, blah. And that's not untrue. Of course it's true.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, they're feeling this inner turmoil. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Talk to us about confronting that and creating or how people find out about you to assist them with that.
So I guess, we are having this human experience, right? And everybody in this world is called I. We all share the same name. Yeah. And that I of ours is having these experiences, this journey towards itself, towards exploring many facets of himself. And one of them is the one you were describing, where I'm in an office and maybe I lead a team or I lead a company, and my first focus is to make sure that I have profits. Mm-hmm. Yes. However, I feel also that kind of discordance, right? That cacophony inside myself where I feel a bit out of phase with that need of profit and my individual need of whether it is having more impact or being more of myself, etc. Now, the bottom line is that for the profits to happen, in my experience as this I that we're talking about, I have to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is the best way I can serve my shareholders or my teammates, by being at that optimized level. Therefore, my vibration, because this world, that's a scoop, this world is only made of vibration, always. So everything is in resonance with everything and so on and so forth. So if I have a belief system that limits me in getting more profits, therefore I will not have more profits, or I will not generate more profits. So if I am able to be at the best version of myself on that specific topic, to take that example, therefore all my teammates will be exactly aligned with that as well. And therefore my shareholders will be happy. Mm-hmm. And so being in harmony with myself internally and also outernally, let's create a word, then we have automatically that success that is happening in its trail, right? Because I've been focusing on making sure that I am letting go of all the limiting aspects of myself, focusing on where I want to head towards, that vision, which is to have growth and have a more success for what I believe in, right? Which is the company I'm working at, hopefully.
So let's push back on that from the listener's point of view, because the listener's saying, well, listen, dude, my company makes $500 million a year. We're doing very well, thank you. I'm a CEO. I'm very successful. What do I need to do? I mean, I'm not looking at changing my belief system. It's fine. Obviously, it's working good. So you and I know there's something beyond that, of course, yes. But at the same time, that many of the things that we know today through quantum physics and neurosciences, many of the things that you and I studied 40 years ago plus, that were mythological and mystical, et cetera, are now science. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And these woo-woo ideas of being in harmony and it's still difficult for somebody to grasp in a leadership role who has quote unquote success. And it seems woo-woo to them.
Yes.
To even consider, well, you're talking about being my best self. Well, what the hell is that? Am I my best self? I'm I'm the head of this international corporation. I've got 3 houses, a yacht. I bought the wife a new set of gazongas and everything. I mean, it's pretty great, right? So,
I mean, yes, and you're 100% right. It works for you the way it happens. The way you have been handling your life and creating your teams and so on. It works. Why changing it?
Right.
Of course, there's no reason why. I mean, you should stop listening to this podcast right now.
No, yes.
Now, if you're still listening, it's that maybe there is an aspect or part of you that feels that there is something behind what we're talking about, whatever that is, right? Mm-hmm. So let's explore it together. And see what we can help, how we can help each other. And by the way, you asked me a question earlier about how I can help them. They can go to my website, tapuat.com, tapuat.com, and there are a lot of tools to help them. So to get back to the question, we have many, many aspects in our lives. Maybe that CEO of ours is super successful, financially speaking, but there's a culture issue. Or the coherence within the teams is a bit difficult. So I was working with a group of 60 change makers on the Nile when we first talked. Mm-hmm. And the biggest issue on that group was that they were not able to carry out their projects because there were a lot of conflicting conversations and relationships. So we had to work with them to create a balance from an energy standpoint so that they could actually enact whatever projects they were working on. Mm-hmm. And they actually did it in a space of a week. And it came out, the output was 10 times what they were expecting. Right. So it works like magic, kind of, but it's actually very real and very much rooted in what we know in quantum physics, right? Which is, to take an example, you were talking about the metaphor of these little instruments that are all talking their own talks and whatnot. If they don't talk in harmony one with the other, I mean, you may get the $500 million revenue, but it's going to hurt a lot to get it. Mm-hmm. So what if you have an optimized system that actually is in coherence with itself and creates these $500 million in more ease and more coherence and more alignment? That's what we're talking about, where things start to become more simple. And we're not talking about the techniques like we need processes, et cetera. We're talking about the very basis of how all these individuals go into coherence to bring about the projects.
So when I was asking you, about them coming to you, and we will definitely go back to what your name of your website is and people can find you and stuff. But that's actually not what I meant. What I meant was...
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's my languaging. So how did they find you? Because, as I said, if you're the puppy who sticks the head up, the environment might push your head down. Ooh. And so how do they come to go, I got to go hang out with the maestro. I got to go hang out with this guy. How do they even know to go to that website? How do they even know, what is it within them that says, I've got to find Arnaud?
Yes, and I guess the best answer that is difficult to hear is listening to one's heart.
Right.
If one feels a calling that is not explained, not reasoned out, that something here is interesting, just, let's lend an ear to it and see if it goes somewhere. Maybe it's not, and you'll have invested half an hour or an hour and, not a big risk.
Right.
But I guess if you feel that pull, then it bears, you owe to yourself to go and listen to it.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Then you pull the little string, and then all of a sudden you find an amazing potential that can help you grow a lot faster and accelerate your vision. Accelerate your path, your alignment with your vision. That's what I meant.
So in the context of leadership development, you've been
Yes.
around this a long time, as have I. You work with these leaders around the world. In the context of leadership development, what, for you, when you look at it, what is the most frustrating thing? By that, I mean, it's seemingly glaringly obvious to you that needs to be dealt with, but it's often ignored or even dismissed.
Ooh, that's a vast question. Do you have a narrower one?
Like, what is missed? What is ignored that you would like to go and shake up leadership and say, why aren't you paying attention to this?
Yes, there is one thing that is blatant, and I'll go back to my Nile cruise because it was absolutely amazing as a use case. So this group of change makers were looking to really change the world, right? Mm-hmm. As many people do, and they were seeing all the wrongs around them. All the big guys are doing this bad, etc., and they were on their journey of reforming the world, which is great. Why not? And when you were looking at the people inside the projects, they were all, between quotes, not fighting against each other, but there were a lot of power struggles. Let's put it that way, which is always a sign of imbalance from a masculine to feminine energies.
Right.
Okay. Not the diversity aspect, but more how every single individual are expressing the masculine properties versus the feminine properties of oneself. And in that case, so related to what we were just saying, they were expressing too much masculine energy and therefore creating the resistances they were looking at. So making the project a lot harder than it could be. And that's a huge cost for the company. A tremendous cost because it needs a lot of power to overcome these resistances that are created by the actual culture of the company. That's huge. Right. So in other words, it's like, to get back to our concert, is you have a lot of percussions and one violin. Yes. Doesn't work. It's not that harmonious, I would say. Right.
So let's educate a little bit here. You talking about male and female energy, yin yang. Certainly, I know where you're going, but let's open that up for people to grasp, because particularly in these days of non-binary and all the other things, we'll just call them things for now. It's difficult for people to grasp this masculine, feminine, because in many ways, as a world, we've kind of opened up a lot about that in this experience of, in a sexual way, of non-binary or whatever it might be. But at the same time, in my experience, people don't really understand what it means to be in a masculine energy or to be in a feminine energy, particularly in a time where masculinity has been toxified.
Yes.
Right? There's only toxic masculinity. Bullshit. That's not true.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Like all white males are repressive. Nonsense. These absolutes. So talk to us about that masculine, feminine, so people can grasp it.
With pleasure. So, our society as a whole in the past centuries have been going through from a masculine expression towards a more feminine expression.
Yeah.
If we summarize it in a few words, and the masculine is more about I, the feminine is more about we, about collaboration, just to illustrate a little bit. I like to also to represent these two energies with two symbols. The masculine energy is like an arrow. It's all about movement. It's in one direction or another. It's all about direction, therefore. It's about segregating. It separates everything in order for this reality to exist, right? So, in other words, if I am a lot on my masculine energy, I'm moving a lot, right? And hustle and struggle and creating a lot of resistances in front of me because I want to go super fast.
Yes.
Usually it works, but it takes a lot of energy. Now, the feminine energy on the other side is like a cloud. It's in stasis. It's not moving by default. It reflects everything. It doesn't have any center, and but it is all encompassing everything, right? And so together, when the arrow finds its cloud, they can create a beautiful harmony. Okay, so the interesting thing about that famous cloud is that it is all about defining itself through all the others. And it needs a center. So it needs that direction that the masculine provides. So that's why there is a beautiful coherence having both. It's not about masculine is bad or feminine is bad. It's about together. So in other words, balancing, having a little bit of movement, of direction, having a vision, yes. And then let the collaboration, the we come together and bring about all the tools that are needed for this to happen or for us to align with that vision, right? And all of a sudden it becomes effortless or at least easier for the group and not just for me, right? Where we have these power struggles and so on. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we're talking, you and I are talking to a male leader. And he says, okay, I don't know that I fully understand it, but I can kind of grasp it. Okay. So what do I do? Wear more pink? What do I do to embrace my feminine? Because I'm a high achieving individual who's, 50 years old, and I've done this. I've been massively successful and want to continue to be massively successful.
And so you shall.
Yeah, and so, what do I do? I sit around and sing Kumbaya and wear a pink shirt occasionally? What does it take?
So I coach also high-performance executive coaches. And
high-performance, I'm sorry?
High-performance executive coaches.
Yes.
And who supposedly have these two, energies there as well, the yin and the yang. And they all bear both energies in front, they own it. So it's not about wearing pink, maybe orange. No.
Unless, of course, you may be a sannyasin.
Yes, exactly. In that case, you're good to go. No, I guess first and foremost, it's about trusting ourselves. Right? Because in that idea of collaboration of being versus doing, the doing is more about the masculine, the being is more about the feminine. It is about listening to oneself. And maybe there is a message inside that is coming up and I'm not listening to it because I'm so focused on the outer world and what I need to do. But there is a part of me that is saying something. And we saw that so much during that COVID environment, where people were a bit lost when they were hearing these aspects of themselves. It may be also about, collaborating more with women or men, it doesn't matter, but looking at how can I lead from a collaboration standpoint, or also, and that's interesting as well, to become more conscious as a leader, meaning each time I'm in front of a situation or a decision I need to take a pause and feeling what is the right answer, not necessarily deciding from a very stick standpoint, so to speak, but taking the time to what do I feel inside, and maybe there is an answer that is going to surprise me a lot. And bring about a better result than if I was choosing from a mental aspect, from my eye. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I think that this idea of slowing down long enough to feel, slowing down long enough to listen. And when I say that, I want to be clear that I'm saying to oneself and to those around us.
Yes.
Right. That we need to slow down enough to feel what I am feeling. I need to slow down enough in order to recognize what you're feeling. I need to slow down enough in order to hear what one might call my heart or my soul or my inner guidance or whatever term makes you comfortable. And I need to slow down enough to hear that the person who is speaking about something more than the words they're saying.
Exactly. And it is a practice. It is an experience. It's a deeper experience of your leadership.
Yeah.
And it bears guaranteed a lot more results than the former way of doing it. At so many
But that's
levels.
the hard part to convince, right? This is going to bring you more results. Well, I've driven like a crazy man for 10,000 years, and now you're telling me to not drive and I'm going to be more successful. That sounds a bit wishful thinking.
It is my personal experience, and it is the one of the CEOs with whom I worked. Now, it doesn't have to be yours, not a problem. No. It's there. But that's what other people have experienced. And it is super pragmatic and really related to the day-to-day, always.
Yes, absolutely. I know this is a fabulous conversation. I'm enjoying it very much. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We just come to the end of part 1. We're going to do part 2 in a moment. And for you, dear listener, we'll just be one click away. But before we end, I want this part. Please tell people where they can find out about you, about all your resources, all the ways to find out more about you. I know you're on social media, and we'll certainly post all those links in the show notes as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have a website, tapuat.com, tapuat.com. There you'll find a self-help section when you can hear more about the method. And also we have cruises or retreats where CEOs can come and work with us. And now we are just launching a weekly online harmony sessions called Who's for a conscious leaders that wants to really have a weekly support with myself and 2 other amazing leaders, healers that can work with us.
Fabulous. So like I said, we will make sure that all that is posted in the show notes. And so you can find out more about Arnaud and all of his fabulous work. Until then, until part 2, which is just one click away, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about what it might mean for you to listen deeply to yourself and to those in front of you, to feel deeply to yourself and to others. And what would happen to your profit and your success level if you started to slow down and find out how to come into coherence, to come into harmony, so that you can conduct the orchestra that is your organization. We'll be back in just one click. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.